Life in Chicago's financial market taught me how to keep everything under control. As a 32-year-old investment banker, I built a solid reputation based on discretion and results. My name is Bradley Foster, and I manage the fortunes of clients who count on my meticulous care for every penny invested. My routine was as precise as a Swiss watch, until that night at Pulse, when my mask of perfection started to crack. Everything I had built, the recent promotion to senior manager, the respect of investors, the trust of the market, now weighed on me like anchors pulling me down. I always kept my personal life in the shadows, hidden behind financial reports and endless meetings. It was safer that way, more manageable, but that smile cut through my defenses like a bolt of lightning in the dark. And for the first time, the numbers stopped making sense. Leave your like if you've ever felt that you had to choose between being yourself and holding on to your career. My office on the 40th floor offers a privileged view of Lake Michigan. Amid market analyses and phone calls, I watch the city pulse far below. The aroma of premium coffee from the Italian machine mixes with the smell of imported leather furniture. I live in Gold Coast, in a minimalist apartment that reflects my pursuit of order. Every object has its place, every moment its purpose. Mornings start with a treadmill run, followed by strategy meetings and lunches with clients at star-rated restaurants. In the evening, corporate dinners became an extension of the office. A perfectly orchestrated routine. Until then. Ashley insisted for months that I needed to live a little. As my best friend since college, she knew every layer of my corporate persona. That Friday, I finally gave in. Pulse wasn't the kind of place I usually went to. The neon lights and vibrant music were a stark contrast to my usual executive clubs. I adjusted my Hermes tie, a nervous habit, when a cold liquid soaked through my shirt. I turned around, expecting a polite reprimand, but the words vanished. Intense green eyes stared at me, mixed with embarrassment and amusement. "I'm so sorry. Let me help you with that," he said, grabbing some napkins at the bar. His name was Ryan Anderson, a graphic designer, 29 years old. He'd just wrapped up an important project with an advertising agency and was in celebration mode. His hands moved gracefully as he tried, in vain, to save my Italian shirt. The conversation flowed naturally. Ryan had a unique way of seeing the world. Where I saw charts and market trends, he saw patterns and creative possibilities. His laugh was contagious, his enthusiasm for art magnetic. For the first time in years, I forgot to check my phone notifications. "So you turn numbers into money?" he joked, genuinely curious about my work. "And you turn ideas into art," I replied, surprised at my own subtle flirting. As the night went on, we discovered we had a lot in common. Photography, travel, good food. Ryan had just returned from Berlin, where he showcased his work at an exhibition. His passion for design shone through as he talked about each project, each concept. We exchanged business cards before leaving, a professional gesture for a meeting that was clearly far from just professional. "In case you need a designer," he said with a smile that hinted at much more. I tucked his card into my pocket, feeling like that little piece of paper carried all the possibilities I'd always avoided. On the cab ride home, I realized we'd spent hours talking without once mentioning interest rates or the stock market. And, for the first time in a long time, that didn't bother me. Our paths crossed again at a contemporary art exhibition. Ryan was showing his digital work, and I was there representing the bank as a sponsor. His face lit up when he saw me, and we spent the night talking about the intersection between art and finance. We started bumping into each other casually at city events. Discreet lunches at quiet bistros became our routine. Ryan would show me his projects on his tablet, and I found myself fascinated by the way he turned abstract concepts into powerful images. At one of those lunches, he told me about his latest trip to San Francisco, where he led a design workshop. His eyes sparkled as he described how he guided the participants to find their own creative voice. I shared stories about my early days in finance, the sleepless nights crunching spreadsheets, the mistakes and wins that got me where I am today. "You talk about numbers like I talk about colors," he observed one day as we walked through Millennium Park. The autumn painted the trees in shades of red and gold, and for the first time, I noticed how the city could be beautiful beyond its architectural lines. Ryan had the gift of making me see beauty in unexpected places. When I mentioned a complex project with a client, he quickly sketched out a visual solution in his notebook. His artistic perspective brought a whole new light to my presentation. In the following weeks, we developed a friendship that defied our differences. He taught me to appreciate modern art. I helped him organize his personal finances. Over coffee and long conversations, we built a connection that went beyond our professions or backgrounds. It was as if every meeting filled a space I never knew existed in my carefully planned life. Ryan's presence in my life began to shake the very foundations I'd built so carefully. Christopher Wilson, son of one of the bank's biggest investors, noticed our closeness during a charity event. His veiled comments and disapproving looks became more frequent at every meeting. At home, my mom's phone calls, questioning when I'd meet the right person, intensified. Every time she mentioned some of her friends' daughters, I felt the weight of family expectations suffocating my truth. Ryan was also facing his own battles. An important project for a conservative corporation forced him to maintain a more traditional image. I watched his frustration grow when he had to send a colleague to represent him in a key presentation. During an executive dinner, Christopher made a point of mentioning how certain behaviors could drive away traditional investors. The stares from other executives burned into me. That night, as I stared out at the city from my apartment window, I wondered if I was ready for the price of authenticity. The bomb went off during the annual shareholders meeting. Christopher, with a mischievous smile, projected photos of me and Ryan in private moments. Ladies and gentlemen, I question whether our senior manager possesses the discernment required for his role. His words sliced through the silence of the conference room. I felt the blood freeze. Years building my career were collapsing before shocked faces and discriminatory whispers. The chairman, Mr. Thompson, stared at me with an unreadable expression. My hands were trembling, but my voice stayed firm as I stood up. Yes, that's me in the photos. The same guy who raised the bank's profit by 47% last quarter. The same guy who secured the loyalty of the 5 biggest East Coast investors. The same guy who pulled all-nighters developing strategies that put us ahead of the competition. I turned to Christopher. If you spent as much time analyzing financial reports as you spent spying on me, maybe you'd understand that competence isn't related to your personal life. Mr. Thompson slowly rose. The silence was deafening. Mr. Foster, he began. In my 40 years at this bank, I've learned that character is revealed under pressure. He paused dramatically. Christopher, your presentation was, to put it mildly, unethical. Bradley is right. The numbers speak for themselves. Thus, I left the meeting and headed straight to Pulse, where it all began. Ryan was there, worried about my curt messages. When he saw me, he immediately sensed that something had changed. I told him everything, my voice faltering as I relived every moment. You know what's ironic? I said, swirling my whiskey. I spent years building a fortress of numbers and charts, thinking that was what defined me. Today, when it all crumbled, I discovered that my true strength lies in being exactly who I am. Ryan took my hand, ignoring the stares around us. And who are you, Bradley Foster? Somebody who doesn't want to hide anymore, I answered, intertwining our fingers. Somebody who realized that authenticity and professionalism aren't mutually exclusive. That night, I posted a photo of us at the art exhibition on social media. The caption was simple. Some investments go beyond the numbers. The reactions were immediate. Supportive messages from colleagues who also lived in the shadows. Emails from clients reaffirming their trust in my work. The following Monday, as I walked into the office, Ashley was waiting with coffee and a proud smile. So, did you have to hire a designer to redesign your life? She joked. For the first time in years, I laughed openly at work. Mr. Thompson passed by my office at the end of the day. Foster, the bank is launching a diversity program. I'd like you to lead it. I paused before answering. On one condition, I want Ryan on board as the creative consultant for the project. He smiled and nodded. Sometimes, Bradley, the best investments are in ourselves. After the corporate storm, Ryan surprised me with an invitation, a weekend getaway to his country house in Michigan. The place was an artistic retreat, a modernist cabin with large windows facing the lake. Contemporary art mingled with vintage furniture, creating an atmosphere that was so very him. Night had fallen when we arrived. Ryan lit the fireplace while opening a Pinot Noir he'd been saving for a special occasion. The crackling fire cast dancing shadows on the walls, where his photographs told silent stories. This is my real gallery, he explained, guiding me through the space. Every photo captured moments of vulnerability and strength. A smiling old man in a Parisian cafe, kids playing at a fountain in Rome, a couple dancing in the rain in London. And this blank wall? I asked, pointing. It was waiting for the right moment, he replied, picking up his camera. A soft click captured my profile against the reflection of the lake in the window. Now, it's complete. We sat on the Persian rug by the fireplace. the wine warming our senses. Ryan traced invisible patterns on my hand while I recounted my childhood in Boston, summers in Cape Cod, the moments when I first realized I was different. "Did you always know?" I asked, resting against his chest. "Always," he replied, his fingers playing with my hair. "But knowing and accepting are two different things. Art saved me. It allowed me to express what I couldn't say." The soft jazz filled the spaces between our words. Ryan got up and extended his hand in a silent invitation. We danced slowly, our bodies finding their own rhythm. The outer world, the bank, the pressures, the expectations, seemed to dissolve in the darkness beyond the windows. "You changed my perspective," I confessed, our faces close. "I used to see everything in terms of risk and return. Now," he prompted, his green eyes reflecting the fire's glow. "Now I understand that some risks are worth more than any measurable return." His lips met mine, soft at first, then with an urgency that made my heart race. His hands explored my body with the same delicate precision he used on his brushes. Each touch was like a stroke of paint, each sigh a new color on our shared canvas. The night blurred into a haze of sensations, the softness of Egyptian cotton sheets, the warmth of his skin against mine, the taste of wine in his kisses. Ryan mapped my body as if he were creating his masterpiece. Every caress a silent promise, every breath a forbidden confession. In the morning, I woke to the sunrise over the lake. Ryan slept peacefully, one arm protectively around my waist. I watched his relaxed face, the gentle freckles on his nose, the way his eyelashes cast shadows on his cheeks. In that moment, I realized I'd found something more precious than professional success or social acceptance. Right there, caught between night and day, I found freedom. Freedom to be vulnerable, to love, to exist without masks or pretensions. Ryan slowly opened his eyes, a sleepy smile forming on his lips. "Good morning, executive," he murmured, pulling me closer. "Good morning, artist," I replied, savoring the intimacy of the moment. The bank's diversity program turned into an unexpected hit. Ryan transformed our story into a powerful visual campaign that captured the essence of corporate change. Black and white photos of employees sharing their personal stories decorated the bank's corridors, each image paired with numbers that highlighted their professional impact. Christopher was transferred to the Dubai branch, a promotion everyone understood as an elegant exile. Before leaving, he left a card on my desk. "Maybe I was wrong. Good luck." It was as close as someone like him could ever come to apologizing. My mom took even longer to come to terms with the changes. Our Sunday dinner became an emotional roller coaster when I officially introduced Ryan. "But what about grandchildren?" was her first reaction. Ryan, with his artistic sensitivity, saw her vulnerability behind her resistance. "Mrs. Foster," he said softly, "I have a niece too. She calls me Uncle Magic because I turn her drawings into digital stories. Family is about love, not expectations." 3 months later, my mom invited us for Christmas. When we arrived, there were 2 stockings hanging on the fireplace with our names embroidered on them. Ryan held my hand discreetly as she served her traditional plum pudding. At the bank, the changes went deeper than surface level. We implemented inclusive policies that attracted diverse talents. Our reputation in the financial market grew stronger. We showed that social innovation and business success could go hand in hand. Mr. Thompson called me in for a private chat in his office. "Foster, when I took over as president 30 years ago, this bank was a club for white, heterosexual gentlemen. You and Ryan not only changed our image, you changed our very essence." Ryan continued his freelance work, but now he had a permanent office at the bank for diversity projects. Seeing him moving through the corporate halls, bringing color to our monochrome world, filled me with pride. At home, we created our own routine. My financial spreadsheets shared space with his canvases and brushes. Our Sundays alternated between art galleries and polo matches, a balance between our worlds that worked perfectly. Ashley threw a surprise party to celebrate my promotion to executive director. In the middle of the event, Ryan took the small stage at the restaurant. "When I spilled that drink on you at Pulse, I thought I'd ruined an expensive shirt. Today, I realize it was the best accident of my life." Laughter and applause filled the room, but I could only focus on his bright green eyes glistening with unshed tears. In that moment, I understood that our story was bigger than us. It was a symbol of change, of courage, of authenticity. The bank still stands tall as a financial giant, but now it has a different soul. On the walls of my office, amid certificates and awards, hangs a black and white photo. Ryan and me at the art exhibition, laughing about something I can't even remember. It's a daily reminder that the best investments are the ones we make in our truth. As Ryan always says, quoting Picasso, "Art is a lie that makes us realize the truth." Our story proved that sometimes you have to spill a drink for something genuinely transformative to begin. On an autumn afternoon, a year after our story went public, Ryan received an email that would change everything. A prestigious gallery in Berlin was offering him a 2-year artist residency. It was the opportunity every artist dreams of: international exposure, complete creative freedom, a generous budget. I found the email open on his laptop as he was preparing dinner. My heart skipped a beat. Ryan instantly noticed my expression when he came into the office with 2 glasses of wine. "I was going to tell you today," he said, sitting down next to me. I haven't replied yet. The silence between us was heavy. The city sparkled outside the window, the lights of the buildings competing with the sunset. The same view we'd photographed together so many times now seemed different, more fragile. "You have to go," I finally said, surprising both of us with the firmness in my voice. "It's Berlin, Ryan. It's your dream." He set his glass down, his artistic fingers fidgeting. "My dreams have changed, Brad. It's not that simple." Well, I spent the following week buried in spreadsheets and projections, as I usually did when processing complex emotions. On Friday, I invited Ryan to dinner at our favorite restaurant. I did some research, I began, opening my tablet. The bank has 3 branches in Europe. The one in Frankfurt is just an hour from Berlin by train. I can request a temporary transfer. Ryan looked surprised. "You'd do that? For 2 years? For you?" Without a second thought, I paused, taking a sip of wine. "Besides, the European market is hot right now. It'd be strategically good for my career too." His eyes welled up. "And the diversity program? Ashley can take the lead. She's always been better at that than I am. I just needed the chance." Mr. Thompson received the news with a mix of sadness and understanding. "Foster, you transformed this bank. Frankfurt is lucky to have you." He paused meaningfully. "And you two deserve this adventure." The news spread quickly. Surprisingly, my mom was the most enthusiastic. "I've always wanted to visit Europe," she said, already planning her vacation. On our last night in Chicago, we held an intimate party at Pulse. The same bartender who witnessed our first meeting served champagne for the final toast. Ashley cried, Mr. Thompson recounted embarrassing stories about my early days at the bank, and Ryan snapped photos of every moment. When everyone had finally left, Ryan and I danced one last time in the near-empty bar. "Are you sure?" Ryan whispered against my neck. "For the first time in my life, I'm not thinking in certainties," I replied. "I'm thinking in possibilities." 3 weeks later, we landed in Berlin. The German autumn painted the streets in golden hues that Ryan immediately began capturing with his camera. Our apartment in Prenzlauer Berg was smaller than my place in Chicago, but it had a light in it that made his eyes shine. Every Friday, I catch the train to Berlin. Ryan meets me on the platform, usually with paint on his hands and explosive ideas to share. On weekends, we explore the city, blending his art with my numbers in ways we never imagined possible. Sometimes, the distance hurts, but then I remember the courage it took to get here, the barriers we broke down, the love we built. And I realized that some stories don't need an ending. They just continue, evolving, surprising, just like Ryan's art, just like our hearts. Subscribe to the channel and leave your like for more stories like this. 2 years turned into 3, and Berlin became our second home. The program Ryan developed at the gallery expanded to other European cities, while the bank's Frankfurt branch recorded record growth under my management. We discovered that distance and closeness can coexist when there's a purpose. Our story, which began with a spilled drink in Chicago, inspired changes beyond what anyone expected. The bank implemented flexible transfer policies for LGBTQ+ couples, and other financial institutions followed suit. Ryan's art, now heavily influenced by our journey, is exhibited in galleries that once only favored traditional narratives. During a recent video conference with bank interns, a young woman raised her hand. "How did you know it was the right time to be yourselves?" The answer came naturally. There isn't a right time. There's the moment when the cost of hiding becomes greater than the fear of showing who you really are. And when you find someone worth that risk, the math just adds up. For those of you still hiding in the corporate shadows, who calculate the risk of every genuine smile, who measure your words with surgical precision, your authenticity isn't a liability. It's your greatest asset. The corporate world is changing. Not because it's politically correct, but because it just makes economic sense. Extraordinary talent can't flourish in environments that demand masks. Creativity doesn't thrive where there is fear. Ryan and I continue dancing between two cities, between art and finance, between dreams and reality. Sometimes I still get emails questioning our choices. I reply with our results. Numbers don't lie, and ours tell a story of success built on the foundations of truth. For you who are reading this, your story also deserves to be told. Your talent deserves a space to shine fully. Don't let cost-benefit spreadsheets calculate the value of your happiness. The real risk isn't being who you are. It's spending years trying to be what others expect you to be. As I learned from Ryan, sometimes you need to let a drink fall for something extraordinary to begin. Your turn to make history starts now. Subscribe to the channel and leave your like for more stories like this.